Welcome to Into the Grey and Revival Nation.
So, Into the Grey, or ITG, is actually a series of interviews and conversations designed for millennials. And our objective is to really seek out leaders, movers, and thinkers who will challenge us to excel in the world.
And be a part of transforming culture. So our goal is to be inspired to build better humanity, better church, and better world, and to do it with intelligence and fun. My name is CJ, and this is Regina, and together we'll be taking you through this exciting panel.
So today's conversation is from empathy to action, and we are privileged to have with us Singaporean of the Year 2017, Dr. Goh Wei Leong.
Hi guys, nice to be here.
So Dr. Goh is also the co-founder of HealthServe, which is a non-profit that does outreach with underserved communities of foreign workers in Singapore.
So Dr. Goh, we're so excited to hear from you and have our minds stretched. But before that, we want to start with some warm-up questions so that everyone can get to know you better.
Sure.
So Dr. Goh, when and where were you born?
Well, I'm a true blue Singaporean, born in Singapore, and born here, and I grew up actually in a place called Joo Chiat.
Wow.
Close by, very close by.
So who were your mom and dad? What were their names and what were their vocations?
So my mom's name is Hipek. My dad, he's passed away. His name is Han Tiong. So my mom was a teacher in a school called St. Hilda's. Have you from there? St. Hilda's School.
Yes.
Yeah. So my mom was a teacher in St. Hilda's School. She studied there after the war, Second World War, and she carried on as teacher there. And my dad was an army officer. He was a teacher, and then he became an army officer after that. St. Hilda's School was near to my home. I used to walk. My mom, for babysitting, she'll bring me to school and plop me there, So all these girls are there and all that. So, so that was pretty much my childhood. In a little kampong in Joo Chiat.
So very happy kampong.
Yeah, very happy kampong. Yeah, so very nice kampong. Yeah.
How would you describe them as parents then? Were they very strict or?
Yeah, I think my parents, being teachers, are quite strict. Any of you parents here teachers are always strict one, right? Very strict, follow rules, they must study. Because the teachers, they know how to treat, how to interact with young people or kids, right? So I had my fair share of play. I was more the creative type. My brother was more the sports type. And then, I had two younger sisters. And so childhood was nice because at our, where we live in this kampong is a place called Duku Road. At the end of this place, there's a cul-de-sac. There was no houses then. And we used to play like badminton on the road. There's a table tennis table in the house, and it was some of the kampong table tennis, and so it was quite nice. And neighbors had chicken and duck and all that. So it was really quite old 1960s.
Sounds like the kind of childhood we need.
Yeah, I think so. We don't rediscover that. Now all you can do is to reimagine, right? Never mind.
Cool. All right, next question would be, who was the biggest influence or mentor in your life when you were growing up?
I think in terms of growing up, I would say perhaps for many of us, like myself, it's my mom. I think my mom had a great influence on me, and because she spent the most time with us, all my siblings, and myself. My dad, from a teacher, he decided to become an army officer, and of course, fathers are usually not around. They're very busy at work. So my mom spent a lot of time with us, and so I learned stuff from her, I suppose. Yeah.
So maybe you could share with us one of the biggest lessons that your mom taught you growing up?
Yeah, I remember as a kid, my mom would always say, share everything, okay? Share. It's like not about being fair, but about sharing. Very often say, this one not fair, but she says, share. And I think sharing was, generosity was a very big part in my family. And because my mom herself was a recipient of immense generosity. So she taught me generosity. So I remember also in between, as I was growing up, sometimes her schoolgirls would come over, and sometimes there was one or two who would stay over, right, with my sisters, and I always never knew why. And then later, after a while, I realized, these are kids who could not go home because something happened at home. So my mom would then, she'll come and stay over and stay in my sister's room. So generosity, sharing our space with people, that was something I grew up with. And I think, now as I look back, I think it shaped a lot of my life, I suppose.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So also tell us, right, what schools did you attend growing up?
I attended a neighborhood school called Haig Boys. There's Haig Girls nowadays, right? Okay, then I went to RI, Raffles. Whoa. No, this. Whoa. Now, now the war, there are two types of wars. Walao, all right. Whoa, yeah, all right. So I think my days RI wasn't different. When I was in RI, in those days it was called RI, and then they had, RJC and all that. So my classmates were a very whole range of people, of backgrounds. Some were very humble, some were very high society even. So I remember my classmates, many of their dads were very humble people. They were, some of them were just daily wage workers. Some of them were taxi drivers. They run hawker stalls. And some of my classmates, dads were, I remember this Malay guy, his father was some perm sec in one of the ministries. Wow. He used to come in a Mercedes, and I know he lived in a fancy house. So we had a whole range, but we had a very mixed group, and that was really nice. Unfortunately, I think the RI of today doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Okay, and many schools too. There's this divide. And that's something you can talk about also, because how over the years has evolved. So I think in RI things were, primary school was nice, but I think secondary school was very special because of the range of people I got to mix with. So I come from middle class home. Because my mom was a teacher, my dad was, an army officer. So we live in in Joo Chiat, but I guess it was sort of middle class of sorts. But in RI, I got to go to visit my friends' homes, and some of them live in a one-room flat, which I never saw. Okay? Well, I didn't know. Although I had some relatives who were living in Tangling Halt at that time, my dad's side. So my dad's side my grandfather was he was a gardener, a farmer of sorts. And he had a garden, he had a farm. He actually had one of these nurseries that you see today. So we had some relatives who lived in rental flats. So it was always a treat for me to go during Chinese New Year to visit, right? Because it's quite exciting. So many people living in this small house. And I also had people who, my dad's aunts were living in the atap house, it's a real kampong slum type. And the sanitation was was a bucket latrine and things like that. So it was quite a very interesting childhood. My mum, on the other hand, was living in a huge house, but not theirs. Because my grandmother had a very interesting story. Okay. They were really dirt poor, but they were living in a huge house. That didn't belong to them. For me, I tell you the story now because it's got bearing with what let me share.
Please go ahead.
So the story goes like this. So my grandparents, they came from China to Singapore because the communists then in the mid-30s were coming down. There was a lot of war. There were a lot of problems in China, and around the world there was a Great Depression in 1939, and then there was some plague of sorts in China, and everyone was very poor. So they, like many thousands of Chinese in South China, from Guangzhou, from Fujian, and all that, all came down to Southeast Asia. So I've got relatives in Indonesia. I don't know where they are now, but I've got relatives in Manila. So they all came out of this part of the world, isn't it? Now, and so when they came, then the war broke out. And during the war and after the war, my grandparents and my mom's family were all living in one room along Joo Chiat Road. You know the shop houses along Joo Chiat Road? In one of the old shop houses, just one room. So the house had about 2 rooms and 2 families, about 20 people, I think, were living there. Now, there happened that there was a rich Chinese chap, was a businessman. He had a huge bungalow opposite the row of shop houses that my grandparents were staying. And but because they're from the same village, okay, they then invited my grandfather, who was a Chinese school teacher and also a rubber tapper, they know they tap rubber, to stay in his garage. One side of the garage, one whole family. So they're so rich, right? They had a garage on one side, then this huge house in the center, and another garage. Now, on the other garage was another family like my grandparents' family. So now the thing about this family from the same village, they shared everything. Okay, so they shared their house. And even though, so there were a lot of people in this huge house at Joo Chiat Road. Now it's like a whole row of shop houses, this 4-story type, it's been pulled down already. But I still remember growing up with that house, a big house, because they shared everything. And in those days, they had cars even. Okay, they had drivers, cars. And, they shared with my mom's family.
Wow.
And my great-grandma was living underneath the house. The house was raised. So, she was very short. She had bound foot in those days. And she was a very small lady. And she lived, because she had a little wooden sort of enclosure under the main house. Don't forget, my mom's family and the other family were just like residents. They were aliens, right? They were guests. Whereas the main people were living in the main house and they shared everything. So I remember going to their home and all that. They shared their badminton rackets, they shared everything, and they shared their cars. So as a kid, I grew up, and when I went to Ara even, they set a house there. Their drivers, they would sit, I'll go to school, chauffeur driven, Not bad, right? One way lah. Then the other way take bus lah. Okay, because they had, their drivers bringing another of their kids to somewhere, ACS or something. Then I just tumpang lah.
Yeah.
So that was the generosity I talk about that was taught very, very early on in my childhood. Yeah. So that was very interesting because our surrounds, our environment really affect us and how we are brought up. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really influenced how you look at community, right? Because of all these experiences.
Yeah.
Wow.
We grew up sharing everything, so to speak. Yeah.
So what, in the end, made you decide to go into medicine?
I always wanted to be a doctor. So one of the greatest influence in terms of medicine was my GP, interestingly. You all got GP, right? I don't know if you like your GP or not, but you don't have to fall sick, but sometimes you fall sick, I can't be helped. So as a kid, I always fall sick, which is, I think, a blessing in disguise. Always got fever, the fever here. That always, I was quite prone to fall down, to cut, that always, So I used to see a GP a lot. And the GP was a very kind chap. And I said, I really want to be a doctor. And he will allow me to, play the torchlight and, I'll ask him stuff. And so I wanted to be a doctor all the time. But in a way, I always wanted to be a doctor, but I also want to be, I couldn't decide between doctor and architecture. I mean, I love design, so yeah. But so being a doctor, I then wanted to be a doctor. But sometimes your plans may not be what it is, or what I thought. To go into medicine, really, you had to have a certain, in terms of cutoff point and all that. And my A-levels wasn't that great. But it was a real blessing in disguise because for that year, they started something called, we don't all the so-called everyone in 4As. In those days, very few 4As. Whole of RI, there was only, I think, 3 or 4 people with 4As.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, it's like A is very hard to find. At the most you get is 1A and then the rest B, C's like that. So that's for A-level. But today is different. Many people get all 4As, right? But again, we are so caught up with this whole thing that my life was defined by the number of A's I get or grades. And that's how we were brought up. But thank God, that was a real lesson. I did not get any A. But that particular year for medical selection, the government said, we want to have redistribution of the top A students or the top students. So interview time, right? So actually, if you get 4As, so the top guy in RI did not get into medicine.
Wow.
Because there's a change in policy.
Wow.
So they just went, I think he got to do engineering, And then some got accountancy. Wow. But the point is that the interview system was changed. So that I didn't get any A. But I got into medicine because of the change in of policy. So I think the Lord works, and again, that's how life goes. And I think I'm just thankful for that. So there are many stories. Okay, better let you talk.
Oh, cool. Okay, we'll move on to, so then could you share with us when and how do you become a Christian?
Okay, so I'm fourth generation. Okay, my great-grandmother, the one who lived under the house, right? So she was a seamstress in China, and she worked as a tailor, a seamstress for a mission. Okay, so in those days, there are all the foreign missionaries who went. That was before the communists came and all that. And after a while, all the missionaries were kicked out. There was a time of great upheaval in China. Yeah. Great uncertainty, great upheaval. Missionaries were kicked out. So she worked in the mission. That's where she came to know the Lord. And And so then they came to Singapore. Then they fled to Singapore. My grandfather, so that's my mother's side. Now my father's side, they're all not Christians. But then my father came to the Lord in his later life. So my mom's side, Christian. So I grew up Christian. I went to a church. And in those days, my great-grandmother was reading the Bible. My grandmother read in Mandarin, the Mandarin script. Okay, not the 简体字, the 繁体字one.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, whereas my great-grandmother could not read, but she read the Bible in Romanized Hokkien. You know, it's Romanized Hokkien. So it's like a bit like Hanyu Pinyin like that, lah. Okay, but it's Romanized. So
Wow.
and so when I was young, I was like, wow. My great-grandma was like, my acho, right? I call her. It's like, wow, so cool though. She can read English, but because it's an English alphabet, right?
Yeah.
But it's not English. It's actually Hokkien, lah.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, you can read English, but she cannot read, lah. But she could pronounce names of roads or all that because she can read the syllabus.
Yeah.
But she has no idea what is it.
Okay, so you grew up in church. So which church are you a part of now?
So I'm a part of a church called Katong Presbyterian Church. Again, Katong we're in Joo Chiat. Now at the moment, my church is in Joo Chiat Lane. So my mom is one of the pioneer or founding members of the church.
Wow.
They started a small group of youth fellowship, and many of them were from the Presbyterian Boys' School and Ko Chuan Girls' School. So now it's Ko Chuan Secondary School. That's the background to it. Somewhere in Bishan now, Ko Chuan. So that's our roots. And so they started a church, got this piece of land, and they built a church, and that's where we were. I currently am Katong Presbyterian Church. Small family church, about 250 people. The Chinese say about maybe 300. It's a family church, multi-generational. So this is quite cool for me. I don't see so many youth people, right? I've got the oldest members like something like nearly 90 years old. You know, no one 90 years old here. Don't have. Okay, then I've got the younger ones that are like babies and families. So it's a multi-generational church. That's where we have.
And what roles are you serving in your church?
So I'm a church elder. I also work with. I was leading something called the Community Building Project. So community building as in the church rebuilding, but also community building, build community, not just the building. So it's a play of words. So I'm in charge of community building. Okay. And the latest, I was telling CJ just now, or Regina, that at the moment we have a new project called the Garden Playground Project. It's a community garden. So at the moment, we wanted to do, you see, we've got a little kindergarten there, and they requested for a playground. And we just finished our church building project. It's always work in progress, but because we have they want to do a playground, we say, okay, let's think through. You know, you see the playgrounds you have in normal schools or kindergartens or HDB, it's just standard one, right?
Yeah.
They look at the catalog. In fact, I saw catalog and just block it. But we decided that we want to co-create this. So we have the kids. So our plan, the next 6 months, we'll have a discovering what people want. That means the kids want, their parents from the kindergarten, our own Sunday school kids. And then we're going to have Ngee Poly, the School of Design, come and help facilitate this. And then we'll do a design, we'll do a prototyping, do model, then parents come. And after that, we'll do recycling. Because what triggered this was one of my fellow elders, her husband is in construction and he's dismantling he said next 6 months he'll be dismantling many of the playgrounds from HDB.
Wow.
And many of the playgrounds are still quite good condition, So how do you recycle that? But beyond that, we're not taking one playground from here to put it there. We decide, okay, so how can we reuse? How can we not just use everything, but how can we do creation care as we do this? How do we learn together?
Wow.
How can the process be, So we take a bit of time to do that. So that's our biggest project now. Sort of running it from the back.
I feel like we need to do another ITG to ask you about creation care.
Creation care is a big thing, by the way. So in my home church, we after every Sunday we have got makan, and we avoid plastics and disposables. There are washing points. After lunch, everybody wash their plates. We got 2 washing points, stuff like that, and
So in 2006, you decided to found HealthServe, which at the time according to what I understand from the research, right, is that it met a real need in Singapore because there wasn't a lot of organizations doing work with migrant workers in Singapore. So besides just faith, what was the impetus? What sparked you choosing this as your issue to work on?
Yeah, so when you do research, I think I was telling CJ, she probably knows more about me than I know about myself. I never researched, I need to go and Google myself. Or help her. When you say faith into this, I went in, just blah, blah, go in, okay? Really, I wasn't looking, there was no blueprint, we just went in. But what happened was that it's part of a whole journey of discovering God. And so at that point, one day I told my friend, his name is Shin Yong, I was working with him doing the post-tsunami follow-up. You heard about 2004 tsunami, right? Okay, the major tsunami around the world, this part of the world. And so I was working with him on some post-tsunami work, and we got introduced. And so every Tuesday, I remember, I'll go down to his office in Middle Road. There was this place there, Kopitiam there. I was having lots of kaya toast. Every day I drink kaya toast with him, and having coffee and kaya toast with him. And we just talk about the issues of the world. We talk about climate change. We talk about the poverty in the world that we noticed. It was like 12 years ago. Okay? And we were talking about lots of stuff. And one day I said, hey, don't you think there's so many migrant workers in our midst? Do you notice? Yeah. Actually, for so many years. Migrant workers have been here for like 30 years, but no one noticed. So I said, so many of them. I said, yeah, I'm sure they got problems getting healthcare. Because I know that because as a young doctor, when I first graduated, I remember all the workers, if you're injured or you're sick, you go to C class, and all subsidized, okay? Yeah. But soon, within 2 years after my housemanship, let me say after I became a registered doctor, the government stopped the policy, and all migrant workers or all non-Singaporean workers in Singapore, maids, domestic helpers, and migrant workers will be considered as A class. Because why? The reason is they want the employer to bear the cost.
Wow.
See, because if you are a businessman, right, your workers will be your problem. That means you have to buy insurance for them or you look after their medical welfare. Do not tax the system for Singaporeans. That's where the problem is. So after that, all these issues came. Yeah. So when I told my friend, hey, how about so after 6 months of talking, I said, hey, Shiong, how about we start a clinic? He said, wow, excited. You are really excited. I said, hey, cool it, bro. What's the problem? Why are you so excited? He said, excited. I said, why? I said, just clinic only, ma. He said, I think there's a real need. I think it's a doable thing. I said, really? See how you got all the networks, you know so many doctors, you see so many people, and you can start. So, the nurses, business people. I said, okay. So we started. Then we went around. So what I did was I had a party in my house. I invited some friends, about maybe half of them were doctors and nurses, and then the rest were all kinds of people from church, from people I knew. And so I came to my house, and I gave them good food, gave them nice wine, and then we talk. Then at the end, I said, okay, guys, there's no such thing as free dinner, right? So I've got this crazy idea. Hey guys, what do you think if we start a clinic for migrant workers? Good idea or not? Then they thought about it, they said, I think it's a good idea. So I said, cool, you say one right, so you guys are with me. So if you say you come from, you champion the idea. So what they did was we said, okay, with a go ahead, with the blessing of my friends and supporters. Then after that, I invited some mission agencies, some key leaders in town. I shared with them the idea because I felt that sharing this idea with the larger Christian community was important. I said, look, I've got this idea. What do you think? And everyone said, let's go for it. And so we started. I had a few friends and some other friends. We got together, we started. And 3 lady GPs, they did a registration for me because I farm out work to them. I told them, then after that, they all do the work. Okay. So, so they did the registration. And for the first 6 months, we were struggling. But anyway, we started actually. That's how we started. We had no idea. All I thought was simple, small clinic. I get very low cost because why? My friends can bring the donated medicine. I got some drug companies who maybe sponsor close expiry drugs we can use. And in fact, all my doctor friends and my nursing friends would come for, they'll not charge me anything, right?
Yeah.
Bring their stethoscope free, ma.
Yeah.
So we were low cost. Okay? But actually it wasn't true. Okay. Then I thought just simple clinic, but as the story goes, a lot more happened. We discovered that the doctors always think we save the world. Don't you think so? Medical people will save the world, ma. Of all its ills? No. I realized that doctors alone cannot. We're all members of one body, but all different, isn't it? Yeah? Yeah, we are all different functions, different gifts. And that's why I discovered that we needed a lot more. Yeah.
So how large is actually Health Serve today?
I beg your pardon?
How large is it today?
Well, today I've got about 16 staff. They'll say 16.5. So 16 staff, full-time staff, and I've got some 450 active volunteers.
Wow.
And in terms of medical, I've got about 110, out of the 450 active volunteers, I've got 110 doctors, qualified doctors, and we've got about another 30 over nurses, 25 dentists. We've got occupational therapists, about 12 of them, some physiotherapists, 1 or 2 physiotherapists, and lots of other people from students to engineers, IT people, accountants, all kinds of people helping us.
That's pretty amazing to have built that in 10 years. Wow.
Well, it's really a Lord's thing. I had no blueprint. I didn't know this was going to happen. I mean, if I knew, I wouldn't have started. Life is too complicated, right? No, but I enjoy every moment of it. The thing is, I think, when you walk into the unknown, when we allow God to do it, I think He really surprises us. And I think that's what happens. I think one of the things I want to encourage you guys to dream and just go into it. I mean, if you feel there's a Lord calling you, just do. But when you start, it's actually very small. You don't know. I really had no big plans. We never had this strategic planning or thinking. Yeah, we really did. We just did what we knew, and as it went on, I learned many lessons.
Okay, so we should get into the main chunk of our interview.
Not yet the main chunk.
Which is we want to talk about from empathy to action. And we thought we'd start off by discussing something you said in an NUS Medicine article. So I'm quoting you. You said, you will only bring real change if you start having a migrant worker as a friend and not a patient. So you've been a big proponent of transforming our old narrative of charity work. From merely seeing ourselves as privileged Singaporeans going in to help the less privileged to something deeper, more relational type of equity and community building. So could you tell us more about this idea of seeing migrant workers as our friends and not just recipients of help?
Yeah, I think in Singapore, one of our biggest thing that we do is go help people. How many of you have done CIPs? A lot, right? Yeah. So what do? We go and help the poor people in Cambodia, Batam, wherever, Malaysia, or what. Go there, paint a house, right? Did you know that the house in Cambodia is probably painted 5 times by 5 different groups each year?
Wow.
It happens maybe 4 times. I'm just exaggerating, it's 5 times. But maybe 4. But we go there, what you do, for 1 week or 2 weeks, right, you'll go. Sometimes maybe 3 weeks at the most. Usually 1 week, 2 weeks. Go there, help them while you prepare, go and do fundraising, go there and help them. Wow, then we feel very good, right? Come here, show PowerPoint, wow, very cool.
Yeah.
Help them, the poor kid, the clothes very dirty, then we give them goodie bags. But I realized that is that really what helping is about, or learning? Okay, so when we see the migrant worker, so for me, when we first started, we thought we want to help them. Oh, all my friends, you came to my house, all 20 of you, right? All of you come, help the poor migrant worker. Your artist, your doctor, come and help the poor migrant worker. And at that time, we did not know their plight, really. We thought we're just as doctors or as Christians, go there and serve these guys, help them, okay? Maybe give them goodie bags, give them toothbrushes or, even soap and stuff like that. But realize that, no, there are actually people who need more than serving, they are people made in the image of God.
Wow.
Isn't it? So if you're made in the image of God, am I more or are you more? I say we are equally broken, if not for the grace of God, isn't it? So if you know that, then the migrant worker is not someone you put thing like just help, but someone you can help because you're equals. And I think that's something very important. And throughout the course, I found out that I began to learn more and more from them. So I think in the spirit of community, that's important to know that there are people made in the image of God. They've got so much to give us. And it's just the circumstance that they're here. It doesn't make me greater or smarter, you know. I got so many stories of why they are smarter than you and I. Seriously. Much more cultured. You think you're very cultured, right? You're cool, all this, my church, very, you know, but they are much more. I've learned so much from them.
Yeah. Because you also talk a lot about that we need to realize as Singaporeans that we actually owe our foreign workers so much instead of just thinking that we are paying them and for a service. That's right. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, we're paying them for service. So we commoditize service, isn't it? So in our culture today, if you want service, what do? You pay for it, right? Okay, so now some of you may have got domestic helpers at home. So what have you got to do? You pay them, right? So when you pay them, then, hey, hello, you better work, okay? I pay you, better work. Okay, Sunday are you off, but then I better work. Or I pay a migrant worker. Now, a migrant, in Singapore, the statistics shows that we've got, okay, what's the population of Singapore? Tell me. 5.6, thereabouts, 5 point something, okay, 5.5, 5.6, you're very good. Now, then out of this 5.6 or so, how many will be migrant workers? Okay, low-wage workers, say low-wage workers. Low-wage, that means, okay, I tell you, it's about 1 million, okay, it's low-wage workers. So 1 million. Now, in Singapore, we've got about 1.5. Okay, real so-called Singaporeans with citizenship, we are about 3.5 million or so. The rest are non-Singaporeans, workers and all that. So the low-wage workers in Singapore who are non-Singaporeans are about 1 million low-wage. Now, the other 500,000 are your middle management, your CEOs of Citibank, all that, okay, who are non-Singaporeans. But we have got about 1 million low-wage workers, of which there will be construction workers, domestic workers, shipyard workers, your cleaners, okay, and then in manufacturing also. So that's the composition of the workers in Singapore. So these people are servicing the rest of the 3.5 million, so to speak. So they build our homes and all that. Now they get, the average worker, a Bangladeshi worker, will pay about $10,000 to an agent in Bangladesh to get a job here.
Wow.
Now guess how much the migrant worker who does construction, the Bangladeshi, how much does he earn? Make a guess. $500 a month. Okay? They can get something $400. But of course, the Chinese ones, people from China can get about 1,000, even up to 2,000. So the average wage, the daily wage is $18. Starting is $18.
Wow.
A day or an hour?
A day.
A day. Okay, so $18 a day. Now, so for them, it's very tough. So they are the ones who build our stuff and, they build. So I think we need to somehow understand that and treat them as one of us. Yeah.
Yes.
We agree that's so important. So I think in many of the interviews, you also use this African word called Ubuntu. So could you just share with us why this idea of Ubuntu is so important in how we approach, this whole issue?
So Ubuntu. How many of you heard the word Ubuntu? The IT people, anyone? Okay, what's Ubuntu? Programming, right? Yeah. It's a program, computer program, this is Linux or one of those things, right? Ubuntu. But actually Ubuntu, you can Google Ubuntu now. The definition of Ubuntu. U-B-U-N-T-U. Go Google now. Ubuntu. The meaning of Ubuntu. U-B-U-N-T-U. Ubuntu. Humanity, what about? A short definition, Wikipedia has about it. What are the key features of Ubuntu? Compassion, humanity. So one of the definitions of Ubuntu is I am because we are. Okay, I am because we are. So I am shaped by people from Revival Nation, right? But you're also shaped by me, but we are also shaped by the people who are here, the migrant worker, our neighbors. We are shaped for better or for worse. We are shaped. So we are shaped because of, so I am because we are is Ubuntu. And Ubuntu, it was something that Nelson Mandela used in South Africa after this apartheid was sort of abolished, okay? At the end of apartheid movement, they then had reconciliation because they said, look, I am because we are. And that's because we're all made in the image of God. If we're all God's children, especially in the Christian setting, right? In the Christian community, we are shaped by each other. So it cannot be that I'm more than you. Cannot be. We are all shaped by each other. So that's something very important, and that puts us at equal level. We are always humble, because humility is important. Right? Ubuntu will insist that you are shaped by the people around you. Therefore, you cannot say, hey, I'm the best here. No, I know everything. Cannot. We are shaped by people around us. So that's important to build community, humility, and for learning, and it deepens community.
So can you build on that and maybe share with us a personal story where a migrant worker has shaped your life and transformed the way you think about things?
Wow, okay, it's quite a lot of stories. Okay, maybe I'll share you one that's quite early on in my life, in our start of health serve. One of the early clinic days, I was in the clinic and this patient came in and he was like, oh, I realized that he couldn't hear very well. Ying Sensen was his name. And so Ying Sensen came, so I asked him what happened. He said, well, I found out that he was working in a lift shaft. You know, lift shaft, right? Drilling. So after 3 to 4 months, because he didn't use his earplugs properly, he lost his hearing. Everything very loud, right? You know those drilling? And he lost his hearing. And because he lost his hearing, he cannot work, correct? I mean, it's dangerous lah. So what did the employer do? Sack him. Now, don't forget, Ying had paid up to about 5,000 Singapore dollars to come to Singapore. The Chinese pay less than Bangladeshis, by the way. So he paid $5,000 to come to Singapore. He's huge debt. After 4 months, he had lost his hearing, lost his job. Now, he had to pay the loan sharks and all that back in China. He had to give money for his wife. No money. So thrown out, and he was found walking the streets of Geylang.
Wow.
Okay, no money. He thrown out, so he went to Geylang. He was walked there. Because in Geylang, there are many Chinese workers who live there. And actually 2 or 3 commercial sex workers found him. And they gave him food because he was hungry.
Wow.
I'm not sure which lorong, but 3 commercial sex workers gave him food. Then after 1 week, he said, hey, this one not sustainable. We ourselves are desperate and poor.
Yeah.
Okay? And then they told Ying Sensen, hey, maybe you go that side, you cross Geylang Road. You know Geylang Road? There's one side, you guys were in Lorong 1 before, Kallang side. So Geylang Road, there are 2 sides. There's an odd and even number. Health Serve is in the odd numbered Lorongs. Lorong 23, 20, and 21. Between 21 and 23, we are in a place called High Point Community Services. Okay, we're inside. Very safe one, no problem one. In fact, there's another story of why, we didn't succeed for the first 6 months. But anyway, so the 3 commercial sex workers told him, maybe you go there and they can help you. So he came over. And so he found, and soon we gave him treatment. I got a ENT, ear, nose, throat doctor to see him, my friend. And, then my friend said, wow, this one need a cochlear implant.
Wow.
A cochlear implant means you insert this thing. And then it's also simple because he said, wow. I said, how much going to cost? It's $40,000.
Wow.
Oh, operation, 40,000. I said, I'll pay something. So I said, okay, you'll do fundraising for him. Then my friend, the ENT surgeon, he said, okay, wait long, never mind. Don't scared. Never mind. What we can do, we could give him a very high-end hearing aid. And he can hear a little, but good enough, safe for safety's sake. At least he can cross the road safely and all that. So that's what he did. My friend then donated this hearing aid. So soon, Ying Sensen became a part of our community. Now, in the meantime, we were getting his case solved because, remember, he lost his hearing, right? Then we had our lawyer friends coming to give legal advice. Our social worker helped him with his case because then he needed money for food and then he needed shelter. So we helped him with all that. So after about 6 months, this case was solved, okay? That means to say that he got his compensation. We helped him write in for compensation. So he got a compensation now. This compensation money was for the hearing loss. to last him. Don't forget his hearing is permanent, which means that this money is to last him for the rest of his life. He can do some business, I don't care, but but he had to go back to China. So he's given this amount of money, and so we were very excited for him, and he was about to leave. Now, on the day, about the week before he left, he went around my staff team. Our team was about 4 or 5 only at that time. He said, thank you so much for this. I want to give money to HealthServe.
Wow.
So our beneficiary give money to HealthServe. So what will you say if you're one staff? Hey, yeah, give me. You need money. Oh, you got so much, you got compensation. Give me. Will you say that? No lah. What will you say? No, cannot. We cannot take lah. How can you take? Anyway, you take also not nice. People find out. Cannot, right? So, so he went around all my staff, team, say cannot. Then finally he came to me, say, Dr. Goh, I want to give you this money. Okay, cannot, I'm here to what? Serve you. Hey, Singapore is here to serve you. No, I'm the professional serving you, poor, deaf migrant. I'm serving you. So, okay. He was very down. Then the last day, 2 days before he left for China, he came back to me. He said, Dr. Goh, I really want to give this money. It was a substantial amount, okay?
Wow.
It's like a widow's mite. It's like in relation to what he has and what he needs, it's about essentially a four-figure amount.
Wow.
Substantial, right?
Wow.
It was very substantial considering his condition. I say, no, I really cannot take. He said, but Dr. Goh, you must take. I'm now a part of your community. I'm part of your family. And after a long pause, I say, thank you very much. I will take it. Thank you so much, brother. And when I took that money, I suddenly felt that, wow, I was liberated, My chains that shackled me to all my cleverness and it was gone because it just took away all these things from me. And, and all of us cried because it was liberating for us. See, we were all working from a position of power, of strength, of cleverness. But that meant that accepting that money from Ying Sanson meant that we had to receive, I tell you something, you may not know it, but maybe some of you, I don't know from what families you come. Maybe you have to receive help from others, okay? Or you have to receive money, or maybe your family, or something happened to your family, your dad or what, you have to borrow money, or maybe you're a recipient from social MCCY or something, or MSF gives you money. I don't know who. There may be some people here. But let me tell you something. It's easier to give than to receive. You believe that? It's harder. It's a lot harder to receive, To give money, very easy, right? Go there and help people. But to receive, very hard. So for me to receive was like, I never receive. How can me, clever doctor, then got a bit of money, got credit card even, receive money from a migrant worker? That taught me so much.
Yeah.
It changed. And now in HealthServe, we gladly receive money from all donations. In fact, many of our migrant workers will always buy us gifts. And to accept their thanks, their thanksgiving, so to speak, is now a common thing. And we learn from them. So I learned so much from them. Tell them another story.
Sure.
Since you guys are very artistic guys, right? So now Tan Lai Yong, Dr. Tan Lai Yong, another guy you could invite him for this. Have you heard of Tan Lai Yong?
No.
Okay, he's quite a cool guy. Dr. Tan Lai Yong, you heard him?
Oh.
Okay, he's my classmate. Okay, also a doctor. Okay, you go and Google him, Dr. Tan Lai Yong, Laiyong. Anyway, not now, later. He's quite an amazing guy. He's my classmate. And he and I one day were in our clinic. So now HealthServe got 3 clinics. The first one is Geylang, right? Then after that, we started social services, social assistance, we have food program, then we got legal advisory, now we got research also, because research is important. And then we had 2 other clinics in the dorms, one in Jurong and one in Mandai. So I was in the Mandai clinic with Dr. Tan Lai Yong, and we just opened our clinic there just about 4 years ago. Or 3 years ago. And so on opening day, at the end of that, after one clinic consult, we were there around a lot of people. Then one Bangladeshi worker came out of that consultation room. One of the volunteer doctors was seeing him. So he came and talked to two of us. So I said, so brother, what's your name? He said, my name is Mukul. So Mukul, so how old are you? He's 25 or 27 years old. And Bangladesh. And what do you do? Oh, I work construction. I'm a general worker. Now, then I asked him this really stupid question. Like, as though they have a lot of free time. I say, so Mukul, what do you do in your free time? It's like as though he got a lot of free time. But to my surprise, he said, I write poetry.
Wow.
I said, sorry, what do you? Yes, sir, I write poetry and sometimes I write short stories also.
Wow.
Now, how many of you have heard of the Singapore Writers' Festival?
Yes.
Okay. How many of you have attended the Singapore Writers' Festival? So, you're cool. As what? You're the participant. You know, Mukul attended as a workshop speaker.
Wow.
That was about a year after we knew him.
Wow.
I tell you what happened. So when he told me that he wrote poetry, he said, huh? Really? Wow. So we put in our place, right? Singapore, very clever, very cultured. And then he showed his poem. He read out, because he had one in English, but very sort of translated. And then we realized that, hey, this is something you can teach us. And soon we got to know him. We introduced him to someone called Cyril Wong, a Singapore poet. And Cyril was so excited, he translated his book. And then my friend Dr. Tan Layong helped him produce the first book by Mukul called Me, Migrant, a series of poems by. So now, the Bangladeshis, not just Mukul, many Bangladeshis, in their culture, they're highly cultured, you know. They write poetry in their culture. So we learn. So you ask me what I learned? I learned real culture. Now, so I was thinking, all my rich friends, they'll probably every day just go long cruises or they're home. After work, after surgery, they will go to their $100,000 multimedia room at home, speaker, big screen, TV, watch movies. Not Netflix. I don't know what they watch. In those days were DVD or what, you know. But here is this poor migrant. He says, so I say, wow, how do you have the time? He says, well, every day I come back about 8 o'clock. Then I, queue up for the shower. And about 9:30, then the lights off. Then I go to the corner. I take out my notebook and I write about the pain in his life. So one day, this is a long story. One day I was, then he soon became, he knows a bit of English, became our translator, our volunteer at HealthServe. And one day I was driving him back. I gave him a lift back from the clinic to his dormitory. And as I was passing the dormitory, this particular route I took, he said, hey doctor, this is what I build one. I build. I said, oh, so what he meant, he was the worker in this condo, somewhere in Woodlands. I said, wow, Mukul, you built this? I said, yeah. He said, sir, this is where I wrote this poetry. The poem called, I can't remember the name, but he wrote a poem from there. And I said, so tell me the story. He said, one day, this is a place where I wanted to give up with life. So he was carrying sacks of cement. I went down, he really cannot tahan. He said, he was so discouraged, he was so tired that he threw that bag of cement down and he wanted to give up with life. And then he remembered his mother and his grandmother. I can't give up. And then he took off his hard hat, the yellow hard hat they wear? Took out his pen from inside. He kept a pen, it was very precious to him. And he wrote the opening lines of this poem on the cement bag. He wrote opening lines of that poem. And so, people like that, I would say they have a lot to teach us Singaporeans, isn't it?
Yeah.
We just go shopping mall, free time, right? But this is a guy who writes poetry, reflects about life. But how are we as Christians? Do we reflect? Are we reflective practitioners of the word? So these are two, one I learned generosity, one I learned about reflection. And Mukul. And the reality is, Mukul, then he wrote his second poetry book. He became a celebrity. CNN did a feature on him. But today he's back in Bangladesh, still broke, still in debt because, he was sacked from his work. So reality is life still is very tough.
Yeah.
Okay, life is difficult. So I think we learn from people, even people who are not believers.
I think in Singapore, we are such a meritocratic society. So how then has it, affect the way because I think you talk about how we commodify migrant workers.
Yeah.
So could you share with us, how do you think we can recognize this? And actually even meritocracy itself doesn't really equalize the playing field for everyone.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
So could you just share with us more about this? So
Meritocracy is what Singapore is built on, or is our ideology or our culture. Now, if not for meritocracy, we may not be where we are today, right? You say, we're the best, we get. So I think meritocracy works only up to a point.
Yeah.
Just like capitalism, right? So it will work up to a point. But I think meritocracy, the problem is not equitable. We talk about equality, and there's something called equity. So you understand the difference between equity and equality.
Yeah.
Some of you might know. Have you all been discussed that before? Have you all discussed?
Yeah, in the leadership team.
Yeah, equity and equality. So never mind. You guys can talk about that later. So, so meritocracy. So if you do very well in your A levels, then you can get certain choices. Give more choice. So I'll talk about meritocracy first. Then remind me. I'll talk about what is the underlying issue that all of us believe in. We grew up in. That I want to talk about today. That may not be in your notes. It's called the free market consumer ideology. We come to that because that's how we grew up in, and that's why you did econs, right? So the free market consumer ideology. I talk to you. You can help me with that if I get lost, okay? But so meritocracy is this. Let me give you an example. So 1 year and a half ago, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I had a patient of mine. He came to see me. Okay, I know his family and all. So my own clinic is in Chin Swee Road, Jalan Kukoh. Jalan Kukoh is considered by some people the slums of Singapore. Okay, so in Jalan Kukoh there are one-room flats. There are 13 blocks there, and only 2 blocks are like non-rental. The rest are all rental. Okay? So this young man came to see me, and came to see me for cough and flu, and then then after that, a week later, he calls me on the phone and says, Dr. Goh, can I talk to you about something? I say, yeah, what's it about? He said, can I see you private? But it's not a medical thing, but can I see you? I said, okay, sure, meet me for lunch. So he came at lunchtime. And now, this young man lives in block 13. In Jalan Kukoh, there are 3 one-room blocks, okay? 11, 12, 13. Then the rest are 2 rooms. And then a couple of 3 rooms. There are no 4-room flats in the Jalan Kukoh area. But opposite, the biggest is the 4-room flat. Okay? But in that area, all 1, 2, 3 room. So he says, Dr. Goh, just to let you know, I got into pharmacy. So he was doing his NS. I knew he finished NS. And I got into pharmacy NUS. I said, whoa, that's cool. And I said, so what are you talking to me about? He said, I want to get advice. How do I get into medicine? So I say, he says, but Dr. Goh, don't get me wrong. I'm very happy. In fact, I'm really thrilled. I'm one of the few people in my estate that goes to university, And so I say, why didn't you apply medicine? He said, I did. I said, how? Never call for interview. I say, hey, but tell me what are the results. Dr. Goh, I got all A's. And then, so I say, then, also the top student in my JC. Top student, okay? But it's not RI or ACS or all this, but it's a neighborhood JC, so to speak. Top is JC. I say, why you never get called? I say, 4 A's. Then I say, hey, you never beef up your CV. What sort of CCA you do? You must put, right? You go this, do that. You help you go for this program, that program. He said, after I told him, why did you put CCA? He said, but Dr. Goh, I don't have CCA. I said, how can you don't have CCA one? Then he told me, I could not because I had to work. I said, oh. Then I realized, this guy lives in one-room flat. His father chops chops chicken for this very famous, this is a 1-star Michelin guy, noodle store in Ketai. What noodle? I don't know which I've not eaten there. He says it's a 1-star Michelin guy one, So his father is chop chicken one, okay? Just chopping chicken only. Not even the owner, hawker assistant. The mother is a bit, let's say mentally challenged a bit, okay? And he's got, so the 5 of them, his parents and his elder brother and his grandmother, 5 of them live in one room. And in this blog, he tells me also that when he studies, right, very often, because the father is also drinking and then they always no money, okay, mother not working or grandmother, and so money is always a big issue in a family. And he studies, outside the house. I said, what do you mean? He said he studies on the stairwell, got light because sometimes the house got no light. Because why? The electricity, they use a cash card or some sort of token, I think they use a token for that. Now this guy, top his JC, can you imagine that? So I was thinking, wow. Given the same circumstances, I'm not sure many of us can make it even.
Yeah.
Okay? So I say, wow, okay. I say, okay, don't worry. And he got his own plan. He said, in fact, he said, Dr. Goh, I'm thinking of not studying. I said, what? He said, well, DHL just had employed him so after army, before university, it's a couple of months, he had been given he went to do part-time job and quite a lot, In fact, DHL told him, hey, can you don't go, I think give him $2,000. Say, you don't go university with you, we promote you to don't know what, and you can take course next time. I said, no, you don't do it. Please go to university. And then I said, okay, I told him, make sure you go to school, go to university, okay? Go to NUS. I'll get you a scholarship. So what I did was, so he wasn't even called for bursary, no scholarship, nothing, because he had nothing to show.
Wow.
What his results? Because I told you the background, right? So I managed to get him a scholarship from a foundation, and so it was fantastic. He got a scholarship. Because he wanted to take a bank loan. I said, no, bank loan very jalak. Because, then you pay back all that. And so I got a scholarship. Second thing I told him, he says, so I said, who are your friends? He said, well, some army friends. He was very popular in the army because he was a top sergeant, because all the Hokkien Ping love him, right? Because he understands the culture. Because in that area, they're all gangster. Where he lived in Jalan Kuala, a lot of gangster, secret society, stuff like that. So they could relate with him. But he was a top sergeant in his course. And I said, why don't you stay in a hostel? Because that would, sort of give you a different community.
Yeah.
At the same time, come and visit helps. So at that time, so I said, you come and volunteer with me in health. So which he did, okay? And he really blossomed. He was a leading our clinic. He helped set up. He was a top volunteer for us, okay? Wow. Now, anyway, back to this story about school. He says, I got no money. I need to work. So that means, he said, Dr. Goh, I plan that when I'm studying in pharmacy, I'm going to work to pay and to give money for my parents because they cannot fund my university, right? Even the scholarship still needs some pocket money. I said, no, don't worry. You go apply. And now he's in CAP, one of the schools, U-Town. So what I did, I got him in U-Town. I spoke to Tan Lai Yong and, they call it interview and all that. And so he got interview and he got to U-Town. They gave him a special, like a sort of a bursary of sorts too. But even then, it was not easy. But then U-Town recognized his background, gave it to him. Now today, he's still there. Usually he stay for 2 years. Now he's still staying there. And now he's like a resident assistant RA, they call it. He's doing so well. And Dr. Tan just told me, hey, this guy, he's so good. He got a prize recently for being the most helpful RA in the whole university town hostel. Everyone goes to him. And I said, how did he do it? He was very quiet because and so when after that lunch, the first time I had lunch, I wanted to introduce you to Tan Lai Yong and some other friends from health. I said, let's go for coffee. So for a meal, I brought him to this little cafe. Then he looked at in Tiong Bahru, a little cafes, hipster cafe, right? He looked at the menu, then he don't know what to do. I said, Dr. Goh, this food, I'm not so used to it. Actually, he has never gone to a cafe. He never take airplane, right? Until only army,
Wow.
No money, ma. He never had Italian. There was a cafe selling like spaghetti. He said, but the Lord sort of prompted me. Okay, I tell you, I think you're right. This food a bit boring. Come, let's go somewhere else. So we went to Zion Road Hawker Center, and he was his stuff. So again, I think So this guy, he's now top guy because everyone goes to him for help because he's very free. You know why not? You know, he study one. Just read one time, can already. Topping his school without studying, you know. Super brains. Now, meritocracy. Where is meritocracy in this?
Yeah.
You see? Now, if you're given, so his starting was very low, no? But many of us have a lot of help, right? We stand on table, some of our parents give us ladder, high ladder, no? But this guy started right at the bottom, very negative. Can you imagine if you study now, how many of you will be able to pass your assessment if you have to study, you know, outside, no electricity. Yeah. No aircon really cannot tahan, no. Oh, no light. Okay, so meritocracy, I think there's a problem. We need to re-examine.
Yeah.
So those who have more should then sacrifice. So if real meritocracy, I think there is a problem. We need to re-examine meritocracy and how we use it. So maybe that story just will be the easiest way of explaining.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I think another thing also about it's like then how can we be aware of, you know, maybe our consumption or our convenience tendency? Because I think a lot of times back to how we commodify, you know, migrant workers. So how can we be aware about this, you know, deep-seated culture that we, you know, the way we consume actually, you know, helps to...
Yeah. So all of us are
that.
consumers, right? Aren't we? We are consumer-driven society and all that. Consumer power, consumer-driven, consumer-driven. How many likes we have, you know. So that defines us. And yet, biblically, what does the Bible say, you know? It's very countercultural. The problem today is the Bible is countercultural. That's our problem in inverted commas. So how do we live biblically sound lives? How do you live a missional life? How does the Bible inform your daily life? Okay? Not just here today, but every day. How we see the world, so we are consumers. I tell you why. All of us grew up in something, we are in this capitalistic world where there's this thing we subscribe to called the free market consumer ideology. So free as in what? Freedom of choice, free lah. I can do what I want. Democracy is freedom, right? So ideas and all that. So free and free market. Market is what? Buying and selling. So a worker comes, I pay more for better worker not so good, I pay less. And you work for me, hey, you sick, sorry lah. Next, get another worker. Correct? Market ma, free, I'm free to do what I want. Yeah. There's freedom, there's market. Market forces, hey, by the way, you come here for $18, you're the worker now. You come in, you yourself want to come for $18 a day, not me, what? I take the cheapest. Who asked you to come?
Yeah.
But you know why you come? Because for many Bangladeshi migrants, back home, their farm has failed very often due to what? Climate change. Yeah. Farm fail, they sell their land. In fact, I know many who are like that. Sell their land and they come. And if you're desperate, you take that. Yeah. Even the pay is $10, you still come because you're desperate. And you know the typical guy, the family will sell all their land, sell their cows to send the youngest young man, the smartest young man to Singapore because it's Singapore. Wow, first world. I commodify you, the worker. That's a problem. Okay, now then free market, so market buy and sell. Then free market consumer. So consumer, strength lah. So I got money, I buy iPhone. Or no money, I don't buy iPhone. Then I demand this, I demand that. So a consumer demands. Yeah. In fact, we also bring this culture to church. Yeah. Preaching very good. Okay, a lot of people come. Maybe preaching, maybe a bit tired there or jalan, right? Or hey, your program not cool, not hip enough. I don't come. Hey, can we have that program? Then I come like that. Okay, are we entertained? Is that a consumer? I'm not sure. We need to, Okay, so these are things that we want to challenge ourselves. So many of us grow with that consumer. And then finally, I call it a consumer ideology. Ideology means it's so much in us. We think it's truth, But what does the Bible say, I think when the Lord took Israel out of Egypt, depart from Egypt. We need to depart from this consumer ideology. Yes. Depart, and to a neighborly culture, a covenant. God's thing with the Israelites was the covenants, isn't it? Covenant doesn't expect anything back. Covenant as opposed to a contract. So with a migrant worker, I've got a contract, right? So contract means you don't, okay, our contract says that you will work 7 days a week or 6 days a week. Then you just sign. You don't know, you cannot read English, just sign. I give you $18 a day. Then, but you don't know that actually the $18, how about food? You forsake how? Don't have. The fine print is not there. Contractual. But we live our lives contractual as consumers. So consumer, you say, hey, by the way, this phone spoiled. Hey, you told me, guarantee 2 years. Within the 2 years, spoil, you change, okay? My right, isn't it? We are bound by contracts. What if our lives were bound by covenant? What would be the difference? So what is a covenant? A covenant is an agreement of sorts. Isn't it? So our relationship with God is what? Covenantal. It's a covenant. Now, can we pay back? Cannot. So covenant, more understandable, we say it's like a vow. So covenant is like a marriage covenant, isn't it? It's never a marriage contract.
Yeah.
It's a vow. So covenant usually is about, when you say, let's say I lend you $10. Say I lend Regina $10. Okay? Then you're my friend, you're my sister, I lend you $10. Okay, pay me when you can. Okay? There's a covenant because we have a relationship. You're my sister. But if it's a contract, Regina, $10, can you sign here? When you pay me back? Okay, by next week, now if by next week you don't pay back, interest 10%, or you got buy me lunch every day. That will be a contract.
Yeah.
A covenant will be what? Regina, you pay. So a covenant doesn't expect, there's no like a time limit, doesn't expect anything in return. It's by trust, relationship. Now, if we have that, of course, we have to go more, today got no time to talk about that, but there are also problems with that, but much less problems. Covenant demands reciprocity. That means so trust, you must also return me, trust me and all that, but it's not a contract. So there's the difference. Now, can you imagine if our society, let's say now our Christian body, we are in the family, right? Now, we say the migrant worker, let's say you're a migrant worker in this community, in this family. Now, and then you're a plumber, okay? Now, I'm a doctor, doctor and plumber, migrant worker plumber, let's say, expert plumber, then I'm a doctor. Okay, but we're all members of this congregation. Now, one day my tap is leaking, my clinic tap spoiled, then you're free. Then I say, Regina, can you kind of help? My tap leaking. You can't do for me, right? I don't pay you, right? Maybe let's say I don't pay you. Okay? Hey, thank you so much, Regina, for doing this. But at the same time, you're not well. Another day in church, you may see me, you have a really bad headache. I say, okay. Then I ask you, I treat you, I check you, and I give you Panadol, let's say. Now, this Panadol, I may not register you in my clinic, I never ask you all this question, declare this, declare that, I give you. We're actually doing bartering, right? It's barter trade, right? Almost like, so we help each other. Okay? As a neighbor, you give. Or if you're hungry, I'll give you some food. Okay? And if you're maybe you're a teacher, hey, I need this help, then you teach. So there is a mutual exchange. We celebrate the different gifts and talents that God has given each of us. Now, who is more important, doctor here or plumber? Both. Who is more important in the eyes of God? Both. But if we commodify, and society is commodified, right? Who is actually more important?
The doctor.
Doctor earn more money than a plumber, right? Yeah. Of course, in Australia, maybe the other way around. But, or some countries. And why? Because, in fact, it's a good thing because they actually realize the pay differential is much less because they realize the importance, they celebrate more. In many countries, so in this culture, we stratify, social stratification. Okay? So can you imagine in church, what if we are a counter-cultural community? Say Revival Nation. Next time you guys got young families and you decide that, okay, we want to be neighborly. We want to have a covenant community. Not one that is contractual. We exchange. People will say, wow, do you think so? Okay, I'm not talking about super ideal, okay? It probably will not happen, but can we what are fresh expressions of the Acts chapter 2 church in today's world? You know, Acts chapter 2, what did they do? They sold
shared
everything. Meanwhile, I sell everything. My iPhone also go and sell. Then maybe. But could we not share some stuff? The generosity that my mother's family had was because this rich family shared what they had. And my mom will tell me, that sometimes the kids from that main rich family will say, "Hey, this is mine." Then the dad, the owner will scold his kids, say, "No, it belongs to everyone." Okay, so I think that's important to know. So these are things to reflect. I'm not saying you do it. I mean, there are a lot of practical things to think about, but can we take small steps toward? So if we do that now, if Revival Nation can change this culture, then very soon maybe other churches do it. Then we can change the culture of Singapore. Possible, in our immediate, in our workplace, in our school. If we say, hey, no, we are about sharing, about that it's important. We are practicing the concept of Ubuntu, right? And and Christ said, right, you have to care for what? The triad of the widow, the orphan, the alien, or the immigrant. So next time you take the train, you know that you're not, and you're next to a migrant worker, you know you're not more than this person made in the image of God. Then you want to bring him to the family. But right, if he comes to the family, you got to share with him, right? But maybe if you're countercultural, the world will notice you. Not that you could shout too loud.
That's really fantastic.
But okay, these are hard things to do. But okay, I also can't do it. But I think maybe as a family, if many churches start doing, if every church do a little, maybe we'll have that, I don't know, maybe the resilience perhaps. Because today's world, to live for yourself, Instead, we look for ourselves, we keep looking, okay, not bad. Right, live for ourselves, well, how? But what if we live for others? Then we'll be shaped by others, and then how smart they are also by osmosis come to us, maybe. Or, then our identity will be in Christ because we are shaped by God.
So let me start to land this so that as millennials we can actually work on something, right? Because I think you point out such a very important thing that we need to be aware of, which is when we have power, we tend to turn people into a product.
Yeah.
And abuse that power in that way when we treat people like products and commodities.
And we may be well-intentioned, right? Go to Cambodia, paint a house. Help them,
And it's still, Is it
help them or is it help us? So even in Health Serve, one of our biggest challenge is, how can I be so certain that it's not for myself? I can feel quite good after seeing a patient, right? Wow, now I help this guy. Wow. Right? Or maybe you help a poor migrant worker. Hey, very good. Tick. Checklist. I don't know how we're going to land, but I think there are little things you can do.
So you were mentioning in a phone call with Regina earlier this week, right? That you said you feel millennials are a lot more empathetic. So off what you just said, because sometimes I wonder, even in our generation, whether we are truly empathetic or it's just another trendy thing that we're doing that feels good. Like, where do you think we're landing? I mean, in your experience working with so many millennials in Health Serve, right? What are our strengths and what are areas you feel we can look out for so that our generation is part of making change instead of just kind of like thinking that we're making a difference, but actually the real narrative hasn't changed in the way we're loving people.
I think you're spot on. We need to change the core narrative. Okay? I think Christians need to change the core narrative. Christians, as Christian millennials, you cannot just be doing the hipster stuff or what's trending. Social justice is trending, after all. So is climate change or poverty. Let's fight poverty and save the world. That's good, but conversation is just part one. But part two, really, if we are framed by the word, I think that will really help us land. The reason is this. In Health Serve, I have all these millennials with wonderful ideas, creative ideas. Many of the programs we have and the stuff we have in Health Serve all thought of by millennials because they are thinking outside the box and they are passionate for justice. But justice and social work without God is dangerous. Yeah, after a while, you become a very angry activist. Wow, why you never help this poor migrant? Wow, very unfair. why is climate change? Climate change becomes actually our own survival. Hey, how about you never think of our subsequent generation? For the Christian, climate change, for example, is something deeper, isn't it? In my home church, we say we're caretakers of the earth not because we don't want the earth to explode or implode, but because it's God's creation and we are to be stewards of God's creation. So how we do climate change in Singapore will affect the migrant worker. Oh yeah, true. It does, Just like I told you about the floods, right? So let's say we contribute to global warming a lot. Who will suffer, the poor or the rich?
The poor.
Poor. If you are rich, never mind lah. Just fly to somewhere cooler, buy the next floor, higher up. Flooding, never mind, right? But the poor suffer. Their farms fail. Okay? So we talk now, from my Christian worldview, God created the earth and I'm looking after it. And I represent, I want to honor God's creation. With the kingdom mindset, migration as an issue, social injustice as an issue is different. So you're no longer the angry activist. But then you want to help the migrant worker. Why? Because, this is unfair. This employee very jialat. I want to make sure he kena. Justice is served to this terrible employer or this unfair middleman. But if you're a Christian, they will say, I want to help him because our God is a just God and this guy is made in the image of God. Isn't it? So our approach will be so different, our framework will be different, and that will make all the difference, I think. So I think that's important for millennials to know. The framing as we come as believers, I think that will be something key for us.